So you're new to Football Manager on console and you want to go from this.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
To this.
Yes, I'm the manager.
Then you're going to have to deal with some of these.
I'm a footballer.
Let's have a look at how you deal with your squad and tactics in Football Manager console. So let's start by looking at the squad. This is going to list all the players that you have in the first team right here, and you can filter it as well. If let's say you want to show the under 21 players, you can also tick the reserve squad button there, and it's going to bring all of those in as well. So maybe you want to give Rico Lewis a promotion to the first team, you want to play him in a couple of games, you can tick that and get them in as well. So we have all these players that are part of the squad. You can click this little drop down here and you can get different information about them. Perhaps you want to know about their injuries. Luckily for us, no one right now is injured. Yesterday's we got a torn knee ligaments or Laporte out for 5 weeks to 2 months. That's not great. So we can also see risk assessment. We can see what their likelihood of risk of injury is. So Nathan Ake and Jack Grealish, for example, very likely to get injured. Ruben Diaz and Rodri are pretty low likelihood to get injured. And there's lots more information you can get about the players here that you will also see on the players' profile screens. So I'll show you on those screens, but you can find out, for example, if you've transfer listed them, you can just get a quick overview here. So it's good for getting a quick overview of everyone in your squad. Now, along the top here, we're going to go a long one. The medical center is going to tell us about players who are injured, like we already saw, Americ Laporte. So you can see the information is repeated, but in a different place here. Report is going to tell us about who the best players in every position are for the tactic we are using. Right now, it's using this positive 4-2-3-1 tiki-taka, which is probably what City use. So it's going to tell us roughly who the best players are. The thing to remember the stars is the stars aren't how good they are necessarily. The stars are your staff's interpretation of how good they are in that role.
Sir, I have an opinion on this matter.
Relative to the rest of your team. So a 5-star player in your team might be a 2-star player in another team. Now, obviously, 4.5-star Erling Haaland is probably one of the best players in the game. In fact, it's surprised he's not even 5-star. Maybe there's a little bit of improvement for him to go there. But you can see there, obviously, Erling Haaland is probably our best player alongside Bernardo Silva, even better than Kevin De Bruyne. You can also see it's positional. So Kevin De Bruyne here, 4.5-star as a center attacking mid. Put him out on the right, he becomes only 4-star. Out on the left, he becomes only 4-star. So something to bear in mind is that the position they are in also matters to that star rating, but it's just what your staff think their ability is relative to the rest of your squad. Now in this report screen, we can also go to the assistance report. It's just underneath here next to the squad depth. It'll give us a little bit of information about our best player, who our captain is, our hot prospect, how good our depth is. It's saying that we're probably lacking in strikers. So when we go into the transfer market, maybe that is somewhere we want to look at, though I imagine we're going to play Erling Haaland with Alvarez as the backup. You could also choose something, maybe you could play Grealish or Silva or someone up top. They'd be more than capable, but definitely the position depth is lacking. You see the position quality is high. Goalkeeper is only average, so maybe you'd want a good backup goalkeeper as well. You can go in and see stats, although we obviously haven't got any yet, and you can compare how your team is with the rest of the league average. So you can see actually our team is below average height in the Premier League, but not by much. The average is 6 foot and our team is 5'11". Average age, we're actually above average for average age, above average weight, above average international caps, well above average wage. The average wage is about 79,000, but our transfer value is much higher as well. So you can see these different things. You want to go in and see how we compare in defense. You can see here how good we are. You can see we have a very, very quick defense compared to, if we switch it off, do you want to show any defenders? You can see we've got a very quick defense compared to the league average. In fact, most of our attributes, and we'll look at attributes in a minute, are higher than the career average. We'll get information about players on international duty. That'll happen in the first season when the World Cup rolls around. And the numbers you assign to players. You can assign players numbers. So let's say I want to give James Trafford the 7 number. I can do that, and then I can submit the numbers at the bottom there. So that is the squad screen. Now we're going to come to tactics. Now tactics is one of the more important screens you're going to encounter in Football Manager. It's going to set up how your team plays, the roles they play.
This is just tactics.
We're going to spend a little bit of time on this screen just to show you what to do. I'm not going to give you any kind of world-beating tactics or anything like that. I'm just going to show you how to change things in it. So right now, this is the tactic we're playing. Let's say we want to change it. We want to play a different tactic. What I can do is I can either change it here, start a new tactic or edit, or set a preset, or I can actually just press the plus button. We can create a new tactic to go alongside this one. We can train more than one. It's going to give us information on tactical style. So there are different tactics we can choose. Now, you want to find one that is good for Manchester City. So probably you want to be going for something along the lines of a tiki-taka, vertical tiki-taka, maybe a gegenpress or control possession. Any of these fairly attacking, good passing ones. You want to pick a tactic that's good for your team. So if you have a team that's not very good at passing, don't be playing a passing game. You know, go with a direct counter attack if you've got quick players, or route one, or wing play if you've got really good wingers and you've got tool players who can get into the box. Try to find a tactic that works for your team. Generally, if you're not sure, something along the lines of a vertical tiki-taka or control possession will work unless you're a weak team in the league. So we're going to go with a tiki-taka style. You can see here our assistant manager recommends this, where it says this style is well suited to the players in the squad, and it'll give you the kind of features of play and how they impact them. So we're going to go ahead, I'm actually going to press the X button on Xbox or square button on PlayStation to look at the mentality, and it gives us a little bit of information about how the mentality starts out. So the first one we're going to get is how we play when we have the ball in possession. We're going to play short passes, or we're going to try to play short passes. Not all our passes are going to be short. We're going to try and play out defense. We're going to try low crosses, less dribbling, working the ball into the box, a low tempo, so we're not going to try and rush it around too much, and play fairly narrow on the pitch. In transition is after we have won the ball or after we have lost the ball. So when we've won the ball, we're going to try and distribute it quickly to the centre backs, and we're going to try and counter press against them and hold our shape when we've lost the ball. And then finally, when we are out of possession, we are going to sit with a high defensive line, engage with the high press, so we're going to try and win the ball back high up the pitch, and the defenders are going to sit quite high up the pitch as well. We're going to try and prevent the goalkeeper from playing the ball out short as well. So when their goalkeeper has the ball, we're going to try and stop him from just rolling the ball out to a defender. So we've chosen this. We're going to press the Y or triangle button. It's now going to ask us what formation we want. It's going to start with 3 recommended ones, but of course, if you want something different, you can just look at the 4 defender or 5 defender tactics that also exist. Obviously, some of the 5 ones play with wing backs. So if you're thinking of a 3 at the back, and then you have your wing backs higher up the pitch. I think we're going to go with probably something recommended. A 5-2-3-1 wide is quite good. We do have some good centre backs in the team, but I think there's a lot of creativity in the middle of the Man City team, and it would be a shame to lose it. So we're going to go back to possibly a 4-3-3. I mean, that feels like we could have Haaland up top, we could have Grealish out wide, Silva out wide, De Bruyne in behind with Rodri and Gundogan, and you know, just the regular centre backs and goalkeeper. So we're going to go with that. We're going to press the Y button or triangle button again to confirm that. Okay, there we go. It's moved our team around, and I've got achieved for it. There we go. Plan B is because I created a second tactic. So you can see now it's also changed the roles of some of my players. So we've got the base tactic set up, we've got the formation set up. If you're wondering what these green lines are, you get these nice green lines when players have a nice partnership with each other. That develops over time. We can do a couple of things here if we want to tweak and change this. The first thing is over on the right hand side here. So we already set the formation, we already set the tactical style, and the tactical style has set some of these instructions, but if we want to tweak them, we can. So maybe we think we're a really good team, we're going to go more attacking, or we need to, you know, be getting some wins. We can click here on in possession, and we're going to get, again, a lot of options that we can go for. So maybe we want to play a little bit wider, or maybe I feel like I've got some quite good players at dribbling. You know, I've got Jack Grealish, I've got Bernardo Silva. Actually, I wouldn't mind if they dribble, so maybe I turn that on. Perhaps at a slightly higher tempo wouldn't be the worst. Maybe we can catch a few teams out, because we have some pacey players like Erling Haaland up top. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to press the Y button. And again, I can do the same here on in transition. If I want to change anything, maybe I want to counter attack, I can turn that on. I'm out of possession equally. You know, when we're out of possession, maybe I'm worried about the high line, or I see that too many balls are coming over the top for quick strikers to run onto them. Just drop our defensive line back a tad. So you can play around with all those things. What I would recommend though, just when you're starting out, is just going with one of the defaults and choosing one of the default styles, recommended ones, and not messing around with them too much.
Now you're using excellent tactics.
Now what you can also do is on the players, you can choose what kind of role they have.
What is your role?
So I've just chosen Phil Foden. I've clicked on him. It's come up with this little wheel. Obviously, I'm moving around with the mouse still, but if you're doing it without, you could do it with the buttons. Now I'm going to choose change role. We've got him as an inside forward at the minute. There's a little bit of description. So an inside forward cuts in from the flanks and will generally go for a shot. He's going to try and attack the goal. If you put him on support, he might try and play through balls as well, or take long shots. probably I want him out wide as a wing, inverted wing on support, so you can do something quite similar. He'll cut inside again, but he's going to look for a pass. He's not going to go try and get into the box. He's going to cut in here. Sometimes he still will go down the wing, try to get to the byline, get the cross across to Haaland, or you know, De Bruyne maybe coming in at the back post, or someone like Silva coming in at the back post. So we can change his role there. Now let's say I also want to move a player around. So first thing I'm going to do, well, perhaps I want De Bruyne and Silva in other positions. De Bruyne is probably better in the middle. Silva out wide, I can just switch them over. Let's say I also want De Bruyne further up the pitch. I can pick him up and drop him further up the pitch, or I can also do that this way, move position, swap player, and it will let you do it. It'll give you a whole load of options. If when you're first starting out, you're not entirely sure on the team and you just want a pretty good team, maybe it's a team you're not familiar with the players, you can press the Y or triangle button to quick pick, and that will give your assistant the privilege of picking your team for you. So we're going to play Hoffenheim next in a match, and this is the team that he has picked to play Hoffenheim. So he's dropped Silva back, De Bruyne to the right, and he's brought Julian Alvarez in on the wing. And actually, what I'm going to do, I was going to change Julian Alvarez's role to an inside forward on attack. So hopefully we get two players there attacking. This is sort of setting up the plan for how I want the team to play. It doesn't mean they will play like that. Particularly players have certain traits or certain abilities, or how the game develops. You're going to see players deviate from it slightly, but it's how I want them to play. It's the instruction that I've given them on how to play. Whether they listen to that is a different issue. So we've set a tactic now. Of course, there's a lot you could tweak with here, but we're going to go forward and have a look quickly at player instructions. You can set individual player instructions. So let's say we come back to Julian Alvarez over here on the right hand side. I can select him. I can actually go in even more depth and make extra instructions for him. Maybe I want him to sit a little bit narrower on the pitch, and let's say I want him to shoot more often. I can turn those on and confirm it. Now what you can also do is, maybe I want Julian Alvarez to do that, in which case I set it to a personalized change, or maybe I just make it a positional change. So if I make it positional, let's say I put Jack Grealish in the position instead, it will also have those options. If I remove them from positional, go back to Julian Alvarez and set him to personalized, you'll see they're there on his personalized options. Jack Grealish, not there on his personalized options. So it's something that I've told Julian Alvarez to do when he plays in that position, but not Jack Grealish. Now you're probably looking at these attributes over here and wondering what all these are. We will come to those in a minute, but those will help you choose what you should be doing here. So Julian Alvarez, for example, has a finishing of 15, which is quite good. So I've told him to shoot more often. Okay, let's go forward to the set pieces. So here you can set who is going to take your set pieces. I would recommend quick picking, but you can also just choose. You can drag and drop them. You can sort these columns, by the way. Just click at the top there, and you will find that you have your best corner taker will be the first one. So actually Sergio Gomez is the best corner taker, so we're going to put him on. If they're left foot or right foot, it just means if it'll be an in swinging or out swinging corner. That's personal preference. The game tends to prefer putting opposites on, but an out swinging corner is perfectly fine. And again, you can go into the free kicks. If you want to set them, you can set them. If you want to remove someone, you can press the little minus button, just take them off. Let's say I don't want Kevin De Bruyne on the free kicks because I want him outside the box or doing something else. I can just press the minus button. And the same with the throw-ins. So that's settled the takers. Once we've set the takers, we can actually mess around with the corners themselves, also the free kicks and the throw-ins, and you'll get a screen like this. And all you have to do is you can click on someone and you can move them around, much like you can on the tactic screen. So this is when we're defending a corner. I can press the X button or the square button if I want to see when we're attacking a corner. And you can see here, look, this corner is going to come in and it's going to aim for Roger. Actually, I think it's on mixed right now. So I click the corner taker. I can change it to near post. You can see it's going to come in here. And we probably want it on Rodri's head. He's pretty good. He's jumping reach of 17. Ruben Diaz has better heading. Maybe put Ruben Diaz there. Or actually, even Erling Haaland might be the best option. There we go. Erling Haaland, 18 jumping reach. Let's get Erling Haaland on that near post. We can just drag and drop him in. So now we have Erling Haaland there. So Sergio Gomez is going to aim Erling Haaland's head. Something to bear in mind here, because my left back is taking the corner, I've only got my right back. The Kevin De Bruyne is set to stay back if needed. So what I might want to do is just drop another player back. So maybe we just drop Bernardo Silva to there, or we drop Bernardo Silva there. We drop Kevin De Bruyne back. We now have our corner set up. Free kicks work exactly the same way, except you also have all the options of direct small chance of shot, indirect wide, and indirect deep. The ones you need to pay attention to most are the indirect wide and indirect deep when on attack and on defense, because they're the ones where you're going to say, well, am I going to aim for a cross? Who am I aiming for? A best headerer, which might be someone at the back post. There we go. This is going to aim for the best headerer who's on the pitch at the time, which will be Erling Haaland. So they're going to aim for Erling Haaland wherever he is in this cluster. Throw-ins again works the same. Obviously, you're not throwing throws as far, though you can do. If you've got a good throw-in taker, I've only got 12 on our Walker here. If you've got a really good one, you can do long throw-ins and get them into the box. You know, a Giorgio Chiellini or a Rory Delap type player. And penalties is simply going to set who should be taking your penalties when they're on the pitch. You just set the order of them. So the order of preference, again, the higher number is better. We'll have a look at those in a moment. The next tab, captains, much like the penalties, you can set who your captain is. I believe Gundogan is our captain now and Kevin De Bruyne is the vice captain. You can look at their attributes and determine who has the best attributes for leadership. I can't even see Gundogan on here. How good is Gundogan's? Gundogan's only got a 10, so he's probably not the perfect captain for City. In fact, Ruben Diaz is probably a better captain, but we'll leave it as it is for now. Match plans. These are quite complex. I wouldn't recommend touching them at the start. Not many people use match plans, but if you want, you can go in and you can make a match plan for if something certain is happening during the match, you can set it to, you know, maybe you're 2-1 down with 10 minutes to go. You can set it to automatically do everything that you want in the match. Change to a certain tactic, change to a certain mentality, anything like that. So it's just a way of automating your match plans if things are not going a certain way. Often you probably want to react on the fly, but just another way of setting it up. Okay, we're going to press the left trigger or the L2 button and go to the next screen. In fact, we're not going to go to the data hub because we can't look at it yet. After 3 days games in, you're going to get a whole load of data about your team, the players, etc. But as you can see right now, we haven't got anything in here. Staff. You come to this screen, you can see who the staff are at your squad. If you're used to the PC full fat version, you'll notice that this screen is a little bit simpler. Most of the other screens so far have been the same. This one is a little bit simpler. You've just got your head staff members. You haven't got all the coaches and everything. So you can go to the members. You can see you literally have an assistant manager. You don't have all the other coaching staff. This screen is very useful. Responsibilities. So you can set what you do and don't do in the game, which is very useful if you're new to the game, because you can set some of these things to someone else to do and then you don't have to worry about them.
What? I delegated. That's what good leaders do.
By default, for example, first team training is actually set to the backroom staff, as is the recruitment focus and the reserve team. Of course, you probably don't want to deal with the reserve team. You are still in charge of transfers. The staff is still in charge of hiring staff. You're in charge of opposition instructions, although I like to give that to my assistant manager. And managing friendly matches, that's a personal preference. Some people love doing the friendlies. Some people just want to get to the competitive game. I'm going to set it to the backroom staff for now.
Are you looking for a job?
I am looking for a job.
And the next screen is the job center. Let's say I get sacked by Manchester City and I might be looking for a new job. I might want to come on here and maybe apply for the Oxford United job perhaps, or whichever team. So I can select one of them over on the left here, and I come down the bottom and I press the Y or triangle button, or I can press the button at the bottom. And I will apply for those jobs. Maybe I want to apply to be the Brazil manager as well. You can do international and club teams at the same time. But finally, the job security. So maybe you want to know if someone is about to get sacked. You can come on this screen. The job status will show, well, these ones are all obviously available at the moment. But underneath, you'll see if there are any unstable ones. Game start, there won't be anyone unstable. But, you know, maybe a couple of months in, Gary O'Neill hasn't won any matches at Bournemouth. We could see a job here available. Insecurity showing up. Finally, for this section, we're going to look at training. Obviously, this is a little bit simpler again from the PC version, but a lot of people don't touch this on the PC version anyway. I've set it to my assistant manager. If I want to take it over, I can. And I can just choose what the training focus is. And there's 8 options here. You can choose attacking, balance. It's very simple. It's what they'll train during the week. Generally, balanced is fine. The assistant manager will probably do something pretty balanced. And then you can see how happy people are with that training. And the next tab, individual training. So if you want to train an individual player, maybe a Kanji, we want to retrain as a left back, we can press the Y button and we can say, okay, retrain him to play as a wing back on the left or a left back. Set that. We can add additional focus. You know, maybe he needs to get better at endurance. We can set that. And we can set how intense it is. So double intensity. Obviously, a double intensity, higher risk of injury and fitness issues. For pre-season, it can work quite nicely. Anyway, if you want to set that for individual players, you can choose which individual player you want to set it for. And finally, mentoring groups. Mentoring groups are pretty useful for your young players. Generally, you can just do ask assistant to assign. But if you want to do your own, you can come down here and enter a name for it and add the players you want. So here, for example, mentoring group 2, Kevin De Bruyne. He has a good influence on the group, and he is going to have an influence over Cole Palmer and Julian Alvarez try and make them better players. So let's have a look at some of those players. You've seen a glimpse of attributes and things a few times. Let's choose a good player. So Kevin De Bruyne here. We've opened him up. It's going to give us a whole load of details about Kevin De Bruyne and what kind of player he is. All these numbers here are called attributes. If you hover over them, it'll tell you what they do. They're all between 1 and 20. So 14 out of 20 is actually quite good. Most attributes you're going to see, obviously Kevin De Bruyne is a very good player. Do you notice how many 20s he has? He has only one, and he's probably one of the best players in the world. So 20s are pretty rare. How many ones does he have? He doesn't have any ones. In fact, not many of Kevin De Bruyne's are below a 10, in fact, because he's one of the world's best players. You will find that, generally the average is around 10, 11. Players under 10, 11 are probably not going to be, it depends what attribute you're looking at, but they're not going to be great at that particular attribute. Somewhere between 12 to 15 is normally pretty good, depending on what division you're playing. At 15 is good. So, if you had all 15s in technicals, all 15s in physicals, and all 15s in mentals, you'd probably be a decent Premier League player. In fact, maybe even a top Premier League player. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne is a little bit better. In fact, he might even be, I think he's the highest rated player in the game. So you can see he's got a couple of 16s, a couple of 17s, 19s. Now, obviously, not all of these are going to be relevant to him. So he hasn't got great marking and tackling. You'll notice both of those are below a 10. But how often are we expecting Kevin De Bruyne to do marking and tackling? Now, obviously, if the lower rating doesn't mean he's going to fail it. If he has a 9, it doesn't mean that someone who's got a 10 in dribbling is going to beat his 9 in marking every time. It just changes the likelihood of things to happen, changes his decision making a little bit as well. How well, he might attempt to make tackles still and just not be very successful at them. But, if he's got a good work rate, which his work rate's 15, he might keep trying to make those tackles until he eventually is successful. He's got good stamina, he might keep up with the players. So there are other attributes that are going to influence this. The other thing to bear in mind is, a lot of these work in combination. So finishing, for example, when your player is one-on-one with the keeper, you can have a finishing of 20, but it's no good if your player has no composure, because he needs to be composed when taking that shot. He can be very good at shooting in an environment where there is no pressure on him whatsoever. But as soon as the pressure's on, he crumbles. So he needs the finishing combined with the composure, combined with the decision making, maybe some of the other attributes as well. We're going to make a difference there if it's a long shot, if it's from distance perhaps. So you got to think about what attributes are going to be important to him. Balance would be useful, for example. You need, how good is his balance, his ability to stay on the ball as he's coming in to place that shot. The combination of attributes is what makes players play well. So, for example, passing 18 and vision 20, that means that Kevin De Bruyne is probably the best playmaker in the game, or one of the best playmaker in the game. And then, combine that with his decision making and anticipation, he's going to be pretty good at playing in your other players. Technique as well is very important in that regard. Being able to pull off a tricky pass or cross-field ball. So we get a lot of information here about Kevin De Bruyne. Of course, he's a very good player. I'm going to show you another player just to highlight that they're not all incredible. Let's find. There's not going to be many who aren't good in the Man City squad. Maybe we're going to have a look at one of the youngsters. Let's have a look at Morgan Rogers. So you can see here, Morgan Rogers has got a few more. He's got 1 in 15 in flair. He's quite young still, so he could develop nicely. These attributes will go up with age. So as they get better and they play more, they're going to get better. And as they get older, they'll go down again as well. So particularly the physicals will go down late career, and some of the technicals. Mentals tend to improve throughout the career. But you can see here, he's got a passing of 11 and a vision of 11. I would imagine right now Morgan Rogers would be good for a League 2, League 1 team, maybe just about a championship team. He's quite a tall player as well. So it could be quite useful. He's at Blackpool, so he's in League 1. Actually, he's in the championship right now, so he might be playing a role for Blackpool in the championship. He's quite quick, so that could be quite useful in the championship. So we're going to come back to Kevin De Bruyne. I'm going to look at some other things. So one of the other things at the top here, you can see his positions, and the positions he's comfortable in. So you see an AMC or a midfielder, he's very comfortable in. You can also play him out wide. He's accomplished in those positions up top as well. If you see an orange one, it's unconvincing, which means they can play it, but they're not going to be great. Obviously, the further out of position you play them, it's going to have a detrimental impact to these attributes and the way they play, particularly things like decision making. So some of them are going to take a little bit of a hit if they are played heavily out of position, but generally they won't have the attributes for it anyway. So you're not going to want to play Kevin De Bruyne at centre back because he's not great at heading, marking or tackling, which are probably the 3 most important attributes for a centre back, along with positioning, and jumping reach, which are his other worst attributes. It will say what kind of position it is. It will also say what kind of role in that position. Now that's going to depend. Kevin De Bruyne can play quite a lot of roles. He's probably a very good playmaker. It's suggesting he's played as a mid-sala, but really it's down to what you want to play him in your tactic. But obviously bear in mind some positions have different roles where different attributes are important. So up top, Kevin De Bruyne would make a very good false 9. Probably an attacking forward, he'd be pretty good, though he could do with maybe a little bit more pace, and his jumping and heading isn't perfect. Of course, he's not going to be a target forward because of that jumping reach and heading abilities. No one's going to be playing in crosses to him, but that would still be in that striker position at the top there. You see a little bit of transfer information. That's his value, although no one's probably going to match that for Kevin De Bruyne, and what kind of player he is, that will be in his contract, how much you're paying him a week as well. You can get a whole load of information about him. Most of this you won't need, but sometimes you might want to know what their plans are, how happy they are, any relationships they have with certain people. There are a lot of good little bits of information you find out here. You know, nations they're eligible for, all kinds of little bits of information. Contract, a very useful one. Again, like I showed you earlier, when it comes to negotiating a contract, you want to come to this contract offer. We can come into it for Kevin De Bruyne here. We can promise him something. So yeah, we'll come back to this contract in a little bit. Transfer details now. Let's say you want to sell a player, and I've got a video on how to sell a player if you're interested, but you can just transfer list him and you can confirm that and people will start to bid for him. I don't want to transfer list Kevin De Bruyne because he's probably the best player in the world. Development, that is the same as on the player training screen, except it's obviously showing for him, and we have this additional tab of progress to see how he's developed over time. Right now it's not showing anything, but there will be a graph that shows up in the middle here that will show how he has developed over time. Hopefully it goes up and he gets better, but that's not always going to be the case. You know, this graph will show the lines of how they've improved. This is reports from your staff on the player. Again, lots of information. It's very important not to get bogged down in information overload in this game. I would start going and playing some games, but you'll get a whole load of information here on the pros and cons, and as I mentioned, poor heading ability. So a lot of this you probably work out for yourself. His performance and his form and everything you'll get after you've started to have a few matches. Obviously the medical report gives you any information on any injuries. Player comparison is quite useful if you want to compare him. So let's say we want to compare him with, let's get someone in the team who we might be good to compare with, Riyad Mahrez, and it'll give us a little bit of a scattergram, I think these are called, of how he compares. You see the green ones are where De Bruyne is better, and the blue ones are where Mahrez is better. If we want to see it on an individual attribute by attribute, you can see for the most part Kevin De Bruyne is the much better player than Mahrez. Mahrez's got a little bit extra agility, maybe a little bit better at dribbling as well. And the final tab is just a little bit of history. You want to see where the player has been. Maybe you're a few seasons in. You can see what clubs he's played at, how well he's done, any career milestones that they've made, competitions that they've won, and this can be quite important, injuries they've had. Maybe you go look at Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and you see he's got a very, very heavy injury history. It might not be worth getting him. Now, luckily for us, Kevin De Bruyne hasn't had any for a while, but he's had quite a lot of major knee injuries, which might be a concern. If you found that video useful, make sure you give it a like and check out the rest of the guide here, and you'll be on your way to a Continental A license in no time.